Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. We're going to talk about watches. I think the poll is still going on in the chat. I don't know if there are any results just yet, anything that we should take into account just yet, but talking about AP Novelties was slightly ahead, and it's 50-50 now. So people are voting. Frank and Honest was there first, and he voted to talk about the new releases from AP. I haven't cast my vote yet, mostly because I couldn't make up my mind. Um, I'm a little biased. You guys know that at the heart, I'm an AP fanboy, even though I have a love and hate relationship with how the brand has been conducting itself, comporting itself towards its traditional clientele, towards its traditional collectors base. Admittedly, you know, today it's even hard to characterize who a collector of AP would be, although there are, of course, many online. But it seems somehow, at least in their marketing, they always cater to some of what I personally always look with some distaste in terms of what characterizes the hobby today, from celebrity collaborations to the sheer disrespect for clientele, exclusivity for exclusivity's sake, um, exclusivity bordering on exclusion, just to generate more interest, more hype, to create a certain experience of luxury. And in so many ways, that's what the brand has become. They have their own hotel that's quite close to where the manufacturer and the museum is in Le Brassus. They have now more than a dozen AP houses globally, with the most recent one in Milan. That was actually the location where these new releases, where these novelties were announced. So there's much to talk about, and I'm sure we can come back to it. And the reason I had to divide my attention somehow, or let you decide what we will be talking about tonight, is because I've been absent for most of the week, early. So you know, there's a lot to catch up on in terms of auction related news, because at least the online portions of auctions started really coming out and offering us some interesting pieces. I have, you know, against my own good judgment, I have posted some relatively obscure stuff recently on Instagram. So I'm going to just plug these posts, if only because I think they deserve some attention. So feel free to check out my Instagram and follow me there. And I will post the links to these posts one by one as well. Um, I have I have seen a watch in a very experimental and interesting movie from the mid 60s, a Japanese movie directed by Hiroshi Teshigahara. And it's a movie called Woman in the Dunes. I think the Japanese title literally translates to Sand Woman. The movie, of course, ended up being quite topical for today as well, since the new installment of Dune is out as well. This is the story of a school teacher who basically ventures out into the wilderness to hunt for insects, and he has this kind of pseudo explorer look to go with it, with his proper boots and khakis and kind of like a work shirt, his camera, all this equipment he has as an amateur entomologist as well. The film has beautiful visuals. I think the cinematography really immerses you in that desolate environment, which is very obviously meant to echo with, of course, the aftermath of the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that's where the watch comes in as well, because on the one hand, of course, it is a watch that complements this outfit, being a rather rugged looking bracelet watch from the Seiko Chronos series, water resistant up to 50 meters. I'm gonna get a clearer picture of a similar example in view momentarily. But the first moment that the watch comes into full focus is in this still, where it shows the time 8:15. And any of you who knows a little bit about the history of the Second World War, and especially about the atomic bombings of these two Japanese cities, might know that 8:15 is local time for when Hiroshima was actually bombed. So there's that implicit reference into or towards that catastrophic event that occurs pretty early on in the movie, and that point is conveyed through a watch, through a timepiece, which I found very powerful, of course, as a watch obsessive myself. These are actually great watches that are still an amazing deal, the Seiko Chronos. In so many ways, these are the precursors of those 60s divers. And Seiko's dive watches, of course, define the brand for so many of us who have taken that sort of interest in Seiko, for their mechanical watches, for their diver watches, precisely because of their design and their ruggedness and that quality that makes them perfect for everyday wear, even if they're not necessarily precise timekeepers. As it happens, this particular Seiko watch is made in that manufacturer that would give us King Seiko. So it's in Daini Seikosha. So, which makes this watch not only the precursor of Seiko's divers, but also of the King Seiko and the 44 GS, which of course becomes a platform for Grand Seiko as well. Hand-wound movement, which makes it again wonderfully sleek, but the screw-down case back and the screwed down double shockproof bridge gives us a lot of the design codes and even the technical codes of what makes Grand Seiko so compelling as a product for some. I was about to say many, but I can't even include myself in that group. As much as I love Japanese products, as much as I love Japanese craft, much as I love Seiko's, I just have that total mental block when it comes to Grand Seiko. I think it's an issue of branding. I think it's mostly my problem. I feel like, it always feels a little weird to pay more than $1,000 for a Seiko. See what I did there? Hey, Peruka, how are you doing, man? Swiss, nice to see you. So I thought this was a really interesting watch from a very powerful movie, and it's quite interesting because this is a movie that is quite experimental, but was nominated in its time for the best foreign feature film, and Teshigahara was actually nominated for the best director as well, which is quite an achievement in Hollywood then and now with that sort of experimental style. So that's the Seiko Chronos reference J13046. And these are extremely good deals still. You can at times find them for $200, $300, $500 every day, in decent condition. I think if you are pushing towards 500, I would say you should really shoot for great condition on the bracelet, all the bells and whistles. But what a fantastic watch for every day. And I was very happy to see it in such a historically and artistically significant movie. My second find is something that I was really, really excited about, because I came across these boxes way back when, and I really thought they were only available and only really made for the 20th anniversary edition, the so-called Jubilee Royal Oak, the revival of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo on the occasion of its 20th anniversary, on the 20th birthday of Gérard Jantel's design. But I came to find out that these boxes actually were used for a number of different models as well, and I will show you at least one example that has a similar box. I'm always fascinated, as you guys know, about watches as artistic objects. That's one of the reasons for my penchant for Daniel Roth, for example, with that distinctive case shape. And you guys know, when I unboxed this watch, I also presented its wooden box that's shaped in the same way as that double ellipse case. But that was mostly replicating the outline, the more abstracted version of the shape. I can just go up and get it, actually. So just give me 1 second. I can still continue talking to you as well, thanks to this new setup we have. But yes, there we have it. So here's the box. And there is the watch, right, with that electric blue, or I think, really this is the IKB, in so many ways. I find this color so much closer to that shade of blue that people call Yves Klein every day. So that's why I keep calling it. And it really makes sense because Danny Roth, much like Yves Klein, the painter, was from Nice. So if anyone ever felt entitled to echo the shades of the Mediterranean sea and sky, that would be Danny Roth. And that was the box for that. So that's quite impressive already, and I think very, very appealing as an aesthetic object. And that was Danny Roth's motto as well, or a slogan, right? La montre objet d'art, the watch, let's say, as an artistic object. This takes it to an entirely new level. I thought when Audemars Piguet wanted to do something special for the 20th anniversary of Gérard Janta's original design, they came up with the Jubilee edition, which is reference 14802, following upon the original reference 1502, and of course coming before some other recreations of the jumbo, of which, of course, the most iconic would be the 15202, especially in the way that it was renewed for the 40th anniversary, with the particular layout of the dial that resonated almost in a one-to-one correspondence with the original. And of course, most recently, 16202. This was a limited run of 1,000 pieces, which, it bears repeating, was also the original limited production of the 5402. Of course, then it became B series, C series, and D series, and they made much more than just 1,000. But that's an interesting fact, and the 1,000 piece production at that time, back in 1972, was quite something for AP. Was quite a large number. For 14802, in terms of its dimensions, remains quite loyal, quite faithful to the 1972 original, to its ancestor. But in some ways, it also pays a respectful farewell to other aspects of that design. Now, the initials of the brand's founding families in oversized form are finally enshrined at 12 o'clock. Of course, that's something that had started later in the production with 5402 as well. And this time, the caliber 2121 is given an exhibition case back, which was a historic first for the jumbo, and it exposes a beautifully open-worked 21-karat gold rotor, which incorporates facets of the iconic octagonal bezel. And all of this makes for a very compelling package, of course, beyond even getting down to any of the other details that I will talk about in terms of the box, and of course the limited number, right? I think at the end of the day, the official production numbers were even less than 1,000. About 269 examples in 18 karat yellow gold, about 20 examples in platinum, and once again about 700 units in stainless steel, of which a limited but unspecified number actually comes in this Salmon dial, which was once again the first introduction of this particular dial for the Royal Oak. Van Lux, nice to see you, man. And Memovox, good morning to you as well. Good morning to Denmark. Please hit the like button. Memovox, I was laughing for hours about the state of affairs in Denmark, because in the rest of the world, for example, in the United States, we deal with all sorts of political crises. But I heard that it was a huge ordeal, something that was talked about in the public for days on end, when your prime minister apparently used the same cutting board, the same chopping board for chicken and vegetables. And I was thinking, man, you guys must have it so easy in Denmark, that apparently there's absolutely no political contention of any sort, that people would actually think about what the prime minister posts in terms of her cooking reels, I guess, on social media. I think it was a still, actually, and not necessarily a video, but it was very, very funny to me. I know this is very random compared to the Salmon dial of a Royal Oak reference 14802, but apparently this was a huge blunder, and extremely contentious in Denmark. And I hope one day I can live in a country like that. That would be amazing. From salmon to salmonella, we're back to the 14802. One of the most brilliant things about this particular presentation was, of course, the box. Many people will remember that cork box for the reference 3700, the original Nautilus, Patek Philippe Nautilus, the other Jarjanta design in stainless steel, was in fact presented in these memorable and, in their own rights, quite collectible cork boxes. So a lot of times when people think of watch boxes, presentation boxes that are design objects that are compelling in their own rights, people think back to those. And oddly enough, we will come back to the original Royal Oak presentation box as well, which is purportedly designed by Gerard Janta. I don't want to accept that, but there's some musings that we can have about that too. But for the 20th anniversary edition, they actually went with a wooden box that echoes directly with the octagonal bezel of the design, all the way down to the hexagonal bolts that secure that bezel, and in fact secure it down with what was then monocoque or monoblock case, and you can see down to that detail. And as it happens, actually the wood they used for this box is also oak wood. So it's not only in terms of its material aspects of the design that are brought over to the presentation box, but even its symbolic backdrop is touched upon, because of course Royal Oak takes its name from what is ultimately a symbol in the British imaginary. Let's put it like this. Of course, there's the famous ship HMS Royal Oak, which was built for the Royal Navy during the First World War. And that ship takes its name from that historic oak tree that gave refuge to King Charles II, then the future King Charles II, who took a hiding in that English oak tree after the Battle of Worcester in 1651. So the fact that all of this comes back and gives us not only the name for this model, but the material for its presentation box, I found was so extra, so excessive that it is that good. The box is lined inside with soft green suede, and for this edition they also have these golden plaques which are inscribed with the distinct number of that watch within the series. I have come across over the years and more recently with different versions of this box. For example, here with a golden bezel. I'm assuming some of these boxes were also used with other special and perhaps limited edition watches, probably in precious metal, probably in golds, around the same time period. So from 1992 all the way into 2000. Between those two dates, there's the 25th anniversary of the Royal Oak, which we will talk about momentarily. Year 2000 is 125th anniversary of AP as a manufacturer, which alerts us that 2025, which is going to be the big year where we will see probably the new CEO Ilaria Resta's influence and fingerprints finally on the company. That's a big year for AP next year, 2025. But I'm assuming these boxes were used for other watches, other limited editions, other special pieces, possibly some pieces connected with the Time for the Trees initiative as well. which got started around the same time. In 1992, the Audemars Piguet Foundation was set up on the 20th anniversary of the Royal Oak, with that stated goal of taking part in the preservation of natural environments, habitats, and forests in particular. So there were many different watches to come out of that initiative. In the meantime, I've also found a 25th anniversary Royal Oak, which was actually a model that was made in collaboration with Nick Faldo, the golf legend. This is the reference 15097 OR. So it is in pink gold, even though the shade here in this picture reminds us of their new release, but there's time to talk about that yet. If you haven't voted yet, please vote in the chat and hit the like button. In the meantime, Memovox says the story about the Danish Prime Minister is true, but let's not pretend that the mainstream media here doesn't use stories to deflect from real problems. Absolutely. I'm just trying to be a little, lighten up the mood, so to speak. I don't know much about the state of affairs in Denmark, frankly, Memovox, even though I wish I could. I wish I would know more about your country. But that was an interesting tidbit to me. So I thought it could be something that we could laugh about together, since you're the only person I talk to on a regular basis who is actually from Denmark. Coming back to this Nick Faldo AP that was released in 1997, the 25th anniversary of the Royal Oak, we have a mid-size 37 millimeter self-winding Royal Oak, three-hander, date at 3 o'clock, at tapisserie dial at the center, but kind of a sunburst gray hour track. And the handsets and the hour markers are a little more traditional when it comes to the Royal Oak design, rather than the configuration that harkens to the military dial configuration in this case. So this is a very classic, understated but classy piece. I really like the combination of pink gold case and like a two-tone gray dial. Actually, it's very luxurious and very subtle at the same time. And there we go. This one actually also had that oak presentation box, except the insides are quite different, lined as they are with leather and not suede, and they carry the signature of Nick Faldo in addition to the brand's signature. And as far as I can make out from this picture, there's no plaque here that is inscribed with a specific number. It's okay. We all need a bit of positivity. Yeah, I mean, look. And yes, Owl is right. Denmark population 1, and it's Memovox. It's you, Memovox. No one else. Yeah, I thought these were just fantastic. The quality, the grain of the wood, the natural finish they gave to it. I was very, very happy to have come across it. And I thought I would share, and I put the link as well. So if you would like to check it out and look at the pictures yourself, and if you don't mind, drop a like while you're at it, I would really, really appreciate that. And also just as an occasion, if you're listening and if you want to contribute in the chat, what's your favorite presentation box that incorporates something original, or that adds something into the picture, perhaps into your enjoyment of the watch. JLC has some interesting boxes from the past. There's kind of this leather-bound red book. I think it was designed for the geophysic. And then there was a Sputnik box for, again, a presentation box for the JLC geophysic, which is designed like a landing shuttle. Is that what they're called? When here, I'll just pull it up so you have a picture of what that box is and what those boxes are like. So this is that red book box with leather binding. It's so amazing. This, by the way, would be the perfect way to hide your watches at home as well, to protect it against robbers, because if you just have a couple of discrete watch boxes that are designed as books in your library, trust that most robbers will have nothing to do with books, nothing to do with your library, unless they know that you have something going on in there, that you're hiding some other box or safe or whatever else within it or behind it. This could be a great design, right? If I ever get into merch, that's what I should do to realize my pseudo-intellectual ambitions as well. I can try to sell watch boxes that are designed like hollow books. But this is the Sputnik box that was also made for the geophysic, and that's, I think, even more rare than the red book version. Wow. Okay. I'm embarrassing myself. Yeah. All right. There we go. Yeah, the Sputnik one is very interesting too. There are some interesting answers already from the chat. Obviously, we didn't have to count the cork box and the Royal Oak octagonal box and the Daniel Roth double ellipse box that I just talked about, or these two. Piruka has a great example here. the King Midas piece. Those are really amazing. I think there are a few different versions of that. Let's show something a little more unique while we're at it, because that's exactly what I do on this channel. Here's a reference 4611. That's a little more conventional in a certain sense, at least for a Midas, insofar as it is a square design rather than the slanted usual version. And it comes with this presentation box / stand that's styled after a Greek urn. And of course, here is the one that one usually means when it comes to that King Midas presentation box. Some great examples presented here. This is watchbrotherslondon.com that we are looking at, that I'm sharing with you on the screen right now. All these different variations, including the symmetrical version, the square version that we just saw. And finally, now that we have gone through, there we go. The outer box, which almost reduces Rolex's own coronet as a minor detail of the larger design. Midas in Greek letters, those details from the urn, the meandering decorations, and of course here the presentation box / stand. Amazing. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Swiss. That's it's a very good example. Original OC says my King Midas was purchased from these guys, Watch Brothers London. Good for you. I don't think yours came with the box though, right? Which, by the way, is no put down whatsoever, because King Midas, as you guys know, is a very rare watch in all its iterations, but especially in this asymmetrical full bracelet version. I'm usually very studied about these things. You guys know, if I'm missing a detail, feel free to correct me. But I think to this day, this is probably one of the only watches that Rolex not only produced in limited series, but actually numbered individually. Rolex is not really in the tradition of doing that, as you guys know. They don't do a lot of limited production, special edition watches, and then offer them for public sale with, assigned numbers and everything. There are watches that are meant to be limited production, that are um, that don't stay in the market for more than a couple of years sometimes. But I think King Midas can be one of the only series that Rolex produced with inscribed production numbers on them, as you can peep right here. So that's quite unusual for Rolex. Yeah, King Midas and the Texan, the two quartz pieces, of which OC is of course a passionate collector. Piruka Swiss was saying the Patek anniversary pulsation Calatrava with the presentation closet. That was the 175th anniversary chronograph, which I have previously um, presented on my Instagram. So if you want to snoop around and find, how I covered it, um, could be something interesting to look at. Feel free to snoop through my Instagram. Okay, I was expecting something a little more impressive, to be honest. Swiss. It's basically just an enlarged version of the jeweler style watch presentation boxes. The ones um, that open, like coffin like, and open in two ways, just more as a stand. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This one didn't really impress me in the same way that many of these do. Of course, those cork boxes were brought back by Patek for the 40th anniversary editions. Kind of like a butterfly box, but styled as a stand, I guess. Again, it's not bad. I mean, it's still interesting, and these watches themselves, the 5975s, I think are beautiful, very functional. Um, I always love a multimeter dial when it comes to a chronograph. I also love like a snail's center for this sort of watch as well. Um, the way they rendered the tachymeter here. And these were, of course, presented in 2014, and they were made in rather limited numbers, 400 in pink gold, 400 in yellow gold, and I think hundreds pieces in platinum, which is a black dial, which has to be my favorite version. The one we are looking at now is the yellow gold. This, by the way, only the OGs, only the old timers know. Jewelers on Time, simply the best. One of Archie Luxury's early sponsors, and their commercial, of course, defined an era on watch YouTube. Of that same era, by the way, just to really show how distinctive these were, more commonly you find the green leather version. Didn't I say that? Did I forget the white gold? But yeah, 400 each gold and then 100 platinum. That's right. Yeah, around the same time, in the 90s, these boxes were a little more common. Green leather, again, resonating with that octagonal bezel design, which is reflected on the outside of the case. I think these are really endearing as well. I like them too. But of course, once you see that more elevated version, it's hard to fall in love with that one specifically. And then I mentioned, yes, there was the original 5402 Royal Oak presentation box, which I feel must have been like a cruel joke played by Gérard Janta on AP. If it is in fact a design that's actually realized by him, I don't know if there is an official confirmation for that. There's no particular reason to doubt it either, right? For someone who had that sort of holistic approach to design and an entire vision, there's no reason as to why he wouldn't have designed the original box as well. For whatever reason, I can't locate a picture quickly. I feel maybe AP's own historical arm would be our best bet. By the way, this AP's own website, by the way, I think best depicts my own bipolar vision of the brand as well. Like, I don't like the presentation of the products and what is prioritized and what is highlighted. The whole marketing shtick they have about everything. But then again, they have a whole section called AP Chronicles, which has like seriously researched, extremely detailed, fascinating pieces on practically every aspect of AP's history. And of course, there are a lot of gaps, but they continue uploading. They continue releasing new material time after time. It's there's constantly something new coming up. Okay. Come on. There has to be a picture of the... Ah, there we go. It's... Doesn't it look like the lids of like an industrial trash can? I don't know. Maybe it's just how my mind works. But, my most charitable read of it is it takes everything that is quite industrial about the Royal Oak design to its extreme. So the presentation box itself, I think, becomes this, to me, monstrous object. I think that's one of the reasons that they're so rare, that not many of them are kept, and that I believe they were already exchanged by more, plain presentation boxes before the end of the series, even. Again, my most cynical perspective, it really is kind of an implicit critique by Gérard Genta about the mechanical watch in its age of mechanical reproducibility, right? That it's monstrous already to produce so many watches, so many stainless steel watches, in a series of 1,000, and soon enough, much more. So, there is perhaps kind of an underlying implication that they become disposable when you make so many of them. But of course, Royal Oak stood against, I think, so many odds that it perhaps outlived that kind of cruel joke that may have been played on it or about it by its own creator. Do I own? Um, not yet. I want to own a jumbo before my birthday this year, before November, which will be my 40th. I might break down before then and get something else. But even if I get something else, even if it's not the 15202 that I want, it has to be a Royal Oak. I don't think I will buy a watch this year if it's not a Royal Oak. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have something to show sooner than later, RTN, and you will see it here first. You will have heard it here, and you will have seen it here first. So that concludes our small segment on your favorite watch boxes. Feel free to direct your questions to me if you want to highlight them. with super chats, but just hit the like button. I think I will end the poll now with the AP Novelties having a healthy margin over auction previews, which we will come back to before the end of the week. In Eichen has a lot of interesting stuff. Sotheby's, Bonhams, and also Philips, I think, have already released, already begun some online auctions. So things are heating up, of course, in the run-up to Watches and Wonders and the spring auction season, which admittedly is actually right around the corner, all things said and done. But of course, not every single brand is represented at Watches and Wonders. And AP happens to be a brand that kind of beats, marches to the beat of its own drum, so to speak. So they have like a biannual release schedule. And the first part was basically unveiled in Milan in their new house, new AP house. This has to be my favorites, actually, low key, along with some new material experimentations. I can't say this is entirely new. The reference 16204 was already released in stainless steel, I believe also in pink gold and yellow gold. This new white gold version, which just came out, replaces the stainless steel version. So there's no longer a stainless steel version of the jumbo extra thin open worked. That watch was apparently released for the 50th anniversary, and it wasn't discontinued right after 2022 and outlasted that with an extra year. But that piece had pink gold accents, especially in terms of the applied hour markers and the handset, whereas the white gold has a more technical and tone-on-tone look, a more monochromatic appearance, so to speak. And I find it honestly much more aesthetically pleasing compared to that. Of course, for everything else, the 16204 is pretty much the same as 16202, except of course it has an open worked movement. So the self-winding caliber 7124 instead of the 7121. All the technical features of the jumbo in its new generation, in its new guise. Otherwise, the new caliber beats at 4 hertz with 57 hours of power reserve, and the watch is 8.1 millimeters thick with its 39 diameter white gold case. Of course, it also has the integrated bracelet in 18 karat white gold with that industrial conveyor belt like design that is beautifully tapered. I think the price point is somewhere around 125,000 $100,000. Even though this is nothing new and nothing quite earth-shattering, basically a new colorway. This was the most interesting piece to me personally. But if you were to ask me, historically speaking, what my favorite open-worked version of this watch is, and of course there are other open-worked Royal Oaks that don't necessarily abide to the dimensions of the jumbo, of that classical sizing of the original. The new ones that have the 41 millimeter diameter are quite impressive as well. The double balance wheel, open worked pieces. I want to say the reference number is 15407. I think. But the 40th anniversary had an amazing model with this exposed date wheel. I thought this was a very funky design and an interesting treatment of that classic caliber. Released in 2012 on the 40th anniversary in platinum. So this is a reference number 15 to 15203, I want to say 203 PT. Only 40 pieces, so incredibly limited, beautifully open worked. Of course, around 8 millimeters thick. And once again, they don't really come to the market all that often. And when they do, they're insanely desirable. They're numbered on the back, inscribed as limited edition. And also the anniversary occasion is similarly inscribed on the rotor as well. This particular example was sold by in Aachen not too long ago, I believe. This is can I see the date? Yeah, this was the 50th anniversary auction, May 28th, 2022, Lot 5, 40th anniversary Royal Oak Openworked, 15203 PT, 1 of 40, sold for 420,000 in Swiss francs. That, I think, comes out to be almost $500,000. And this is one of the occasions where the fact that in Aachen doesn't charge buyer's premium really makes a difference. But anyway, would you really care about that much if you're buying a $500,000 watch? Maybe you should care even more. What do I know? This is powered, of course, by caliber 5122, which is an open worked version of the classic caliber 2121, which was itself derived from JLC 920, made in 1967 for Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and Patek Philippe. My second favorite, I have to say, of all these new releases, and there are many, is the Flying Tourbillon Open Worked 26735. Once again, it's essentially a new colorway. So I don't know why I got so excited, but hey, it's a new alloy, and it's an alloy that I found very inspiring. I mean, we were looking at that Nick Faldo earlier. The 15097 OR, which was pink gold, but I don't know if it was the pictures or the way that the dial showed that particular case. It felt like a very subtle expression of that pink gold. Here, apparently, we have a material that oscillates between pink gold and white gold. It is essentially very similar to the alloy that AP uses for pink gold, but apparently from that they removed silver from that mix and replaced it with palladium, which created this beige shade. And I'm using that specifically because Chanel, for example, has its alloy of beige gold that I find very, very subtle and very interesting. Quite honestly, I think these chameleon like alloys that brands present as proprietary all have, not all, but these couple specific ones. I will add to this group Alan Gunzuna's honey gold as well. Their honey gold, Chanel's beige gold, and AP's new sand gold, SG, literally, has a certain similarity to each other. I have to say, I haven't yet seen in person AP's sand gold, so I can't really say this with full chest, so to speak, with absolute conviction. But from what I've observed from pictures here and this video as well, which is more of an animation than any real demonstration of the color, to be brutally honest, this really reminds me of Chanel's beige gold, and to a certain extent also Lange's honey gold, because it is basically a very subtle chameleon-like gold alloy that, depending on the angle of the lights, gives you shades of all the various all the variations of golds, but I think it mostly hovers between pink and white, to be honest. Like here, for example, it looks very grayish, almost silver-like, and more like white gold, whereas back up here, right, in this presentation, it really looks more like a certain shade of pink gold more than anything else. I think Hodinky has admittedly better pictures, and as much as I hate to give them airtime, I think I'll have to budge here. Like you see here, for example, it's more pink than anything else. Still quite pink, but maybe a little more of a gray vibe here. Still quite pink. But for example, here, maybe it's the outfit, maybe it's just the feel, maybe it's the angle of the lighting, but there we go. This looks very grayish, very silver-like, and very much like white gold to me. I think this is very interesting, and of course, I really do love the AP's execution of the flying tourbillon, and AP has been for a good time masters of open working, masters of skeletonization. So it only is right that they continue. Of course, the finishes have become so much more industrialized in a way, maybe lacking in nuance a little bit, more machine oriented than hand finished, less interior angles, but the feel, the aesthetics are very much still there, and I think still quite inspiring, even if the work is not as classically gorgeous. Of course, the important detail here is that the bridges of the movements is finished in the same way. With the same shade of gold, which gives the watch a very uniform look. This was a watch and a movement introduced in 2022 for the 50th anniversary. 41 millimeters in this new sand gold alloy, 10.6 millimeter case. And it has very much that feeling of quite luxury, right? You know, it very clearly looks like gold. Obviously feels like, and again, I haven't tried sand gold yet, but probably in terms of heft, it won't be that much different from other alloys of gold. But its look, I feel, is a lot more subtle than most other alloys of gold. I mean, you know, compare this to Rolex's Everose, for example, which would be on the other side of the spectrum. And what that watch conveys, let's say an Everose Yachtmaster 40, which is a watch that I really adore. But even on the Oyster Flex bracelet, that's a very loud watch. And this watch, with all the more intricate work that goes into its making and its finishing, I feel is much more subtle, and that owes it to this new gold alloy, which um, actually gives me the same kind of feeling as Chanel's beige gold and Lange's honey gold. Um, I'll just go with them, through them one by one, uh, since we have pulled up the Hodinki article at this point. Memovox, you are indeed right. The machine movement finish goes well with the brutalist case design. I think, beyond that, Memovox, I think I'm experiencing something similar with AP that I have with Rolex. And in terms of the products, I have made my peace with it, right? With Rolex too. 10, 15 years ago, uh, I just wasn't happy with Rolex's contemporary offerings, and it made me a little bit resentful. I was always thinking, this is not loyal to Rolex's original products. This is not faithful to their professional tool watch aesthetic. Then I realized, why should it be, right? It's the 21st century. Uh, they're still the brand that remains, in fact, by and large, the most loyal to their larger, broader aesthetic codes. They still make watches that are so recognizable through the decades, but obviously, uh, within that glacial pace of change, the accumulation of quantitative modifications at some point bring something relatively new, even qualitatively new, to the table, and that's fine, right? Rolex doesn't have to make the same watch that they were making in the 60s and 80s today. And same thing can be said about AP. I think earlier open worked Audemars Piguet watches and even open worked Royal Oaks were perhaps a little more uh, artistic. The finishing, uh, the skeletonization work was maybe more traditional than industrial. But you're right. Maybe this today's approach, in fact, perhaps honors the brutalist design aesthetic of the Royal Oak even more closely. You can certainly say that. I'm not sure if I agree with it 100%, uh, but I see it makes sense, right? I don't think an open works Royal Oak in 2012 should look the same as an open work Royal Oak in 2022. And those two certainly don't look the same with an open works AP watch from the 70s or 80s. And and that's a good thing. This, by the way, is an incredible piece too. We are looking at a 37 millimeter white gold Royal Oak with the self-winding tourbillon. This is the extra thin RD number 3 in 37 millimeters. It was already quite an impressive feat that they were able to fashion an automatic movement, a self-winding movement with a tourbillon escapement in the jumbo case, 39 millimeter by 8.1 in thickness. And of course, the 37 millimeter version of the RD number 3 shrinks that a further 2 millimeters as well. A petite tapisserie dial with a smoked blue finish. And as you can see, it has a white gold octagonal bezel set with diamonds and those beautifully beautifully placed baguette cuts, diamond markers as well. I think it's an absolutely stunning watch. Maybe not masculine enough for some, but I think it's a very compelling offering. There's hardly anything except for the Code 1159s that I didn't like in this release, to be honest. But this was quite fascinating for me as well. By the way, both of these watches, both the open-worked flying tourbillon that introduces the sand gold alloy 26735 SG, and this self-winding tourbillon extra thin in white gold, the RD number 3 in 37 millimeters, 26660 BC. They're both $250,000 watches, just about. Then there are two pieces that use that popular smoked gold dial that Royal Oak, that AP introduced in the 16202 BA, the 50th anniversary of the Royal Oak Jumbo in yellow gold. This was one of the first YouTube shorts that I made. Let's see if I can dig it up. How I thought they seemed to be inspired by some of those patinated, even you might say tropicalized Rolex styles. I don't know if you will see it. But I thought there was a certain parallel between these designs. But that aesthetic they have brought in a different way to two new pieces that are added to the Royal Oak lineup. A mid-sized 37 millimeter south winding in yellow frosted gold. This is like the 555 reference, 15550 BA. The piece actually has the frosted finish, which is the Florentine finish, the Tuscan finish, as they call, that became really prominent through collaborations with Carolina Bucci, and also known as the technique that was used to produce the Tuscan dials originally. I found it very embarrassing, by the way, for Hodinkee that they think the Tuscan dial is just a cool nickname that Italian collectors came up with for this finish when it's used on dials, because it resembles the Tuscan night sky. Has absolutely nothing to do with it. Tuscan dials are called Tuscan or Florentine because the technique of hand hammering that is associated with it, that in contemporary time is applied with this pneumatic device, hand guided, of a hand hammer. It's because that technique originated in Florence, which, at least in the way we know it, and is used by AP. And Florence happens to be in Tuscany, in the region of Italy that is Tuscany. So that's where the name Tuscan dial comes from. It's not just a nickname. It's not because it ends up looking like the Tuscan sky when it's made in the dials, such as this one. Let me pull that up very quickly because that's a very interesting example. This is from Eric Peng Cheng's collection. It's not a Royal Oak, but it should demonstrate a Tuscan dial quite well. And as you can see, this is exactly the same method, perhaps more artisanal in the earlier models like this, 25657 PT. But this is the same technique as it's used here on the case and bracelet and the bezel and everything else. And it's called Florentine or Tuscan finish, or more broadly, more generally, frosting. But it's called Florentine or Tuscan because that's the origin. Cool story, bro, but that's not how it is. I mean, that was a huge blunder by Mark Kozlaric, but I suppose no one cares or knows these things at this point anyways, and there's probably no editing or quality control at Hodinkee these days while they are trying to, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and not go bankrupt. The dial, of course, differently than the 16202BA, is not a tapisserie dial, but like a Brunet dial, somewhat textured, but not patterned in that traditional pantograph drawn tapisserie design of the Royal Oak. This is the 15550 BA, the mid-sized Royal Oak in yellow frosted gold with the smoked gold dial. That is, I believe, 66,000, just about 66,000. There's also a chronograph, a 41 millimeter chronograph that adopts the same color scheme for the dial, which is a Grand Tapisserie dial with a smoked gold finish. The case is in the usual rendition of the 18 carats yellow gold. That's reference 26240 BA, 41 millimeter, 12.4 millimeters thick. Grand tapisserie dial with that smoked gold finish. Self-winding chronograph with flyback functionality. 70 hours of power reserve. And around $75,000 in terms of its list price. This is, again, the 37 millimeter in frosted yellow gold with frosted finish, 41 millimeter chronograph in 18 karat yellow gold. There's a new time and dates Rolex offshore with a smoked blue mega tapisserie dial, something that we more readily associate with the offshore series. That's great. Sand gold sounds so luxurious. You know, I thought it was very shrewd, actually. Mark Kozlarek, you know, I skewered them already, so I should give him some credit, say something nice at the end. He likens the shade of that new alloy sand gold with the color scheme that characterizes the products of Loro Piana. You can add Brunello Cucinelli in there as well. I think both of these Italian brands, both of these luxury brands, represent a certain understanding of quiet luxury that prides itself on the quality of raw material used and the workmanship and the artisanal craft that goes into the making of the products, more than how it looks luxurious or branded, etc. And the new sand gold alloy, admittedly, has that sort of appearance, right? You know, it kind of has that color scheme that is quite neutral, earthen, you might say. You know, if you, next time you pass by Brunello Cucinelli boutique, or next time you go to the mall that has all your favorite LVMH brands, and you go into the Loro Piana, you will know exactly what I'm saying here and exactly what Mark Kozlarek identified in his write-up of this piece. So I know Sand Gold, which is their official name, by the way, down to the abbreviation SG, might not sound particularly luxurious, but that's part of the catch as well, right? It's supposed to be a little more subtle, a little more low key, even though obviously to anyone who knows anything, it still screams luxury. I mean, it's an AP in precious metal after all. We were just looking at the new Royal Oak Offshore, which is a time and date, which AP likes calling just self-winding, 43 millimeters in case diameter, with a rubber bezel. So blue, smoked blue mega tapisserie dial, blue bezel, blue rubber bezel, blue rubber band. This is actually, I mean, this is a very sexy watch. I think it's, again, it's something that would be way too big for me, but still, I find it aesthetically pleasing. This is 15605 SK. I think it looks interesting, distinctive. I was never a huge fan of these particular versions of the Royal Oak Offshore. I have warmed up to the larger design over the years. I found so many things to appreciate about it. Um, but these versions still remind me of Hublot, and I don't really like Hublot. Yeah, I like the offshore divers. I like the original Beast. I really like, and I think that probably is my favorite offshore of all time. I like the triple calendar. I think the reference number must be something like 25 807. There we go. This is a thick boy, but the diameter is 38 millimeters. This is my favorite offshore. And I think I have this actually on my Instagram as a reel. There we go. .38 millimeters in diameter, 12.6 millimeters in thickness. It has a petite tapisserie dial, seconds on a subsidiary dial at 6, a date indicator on the rejo, on the perimeter of the dial, and two apertures, two openings for the month and day of the week as well. And of course, all the usual details as well, with a rubber clad crown and an exposed rubber gasket too. So it does still fit in that Royal Oak Offshore quote unquote beast design ethos without necessarily taking on all of those dimensions, and certainly providing an unusual complications here. Artie says, I wear Loro Piana and I don't see the synergy here. Sure. If you don't see it, you don't see it. If you don't feel it, you don't feel it. That's absolutely fine. Again, I don't find it particularly path breaking because similar alloys, with Chanel's beige gold being the closest, with Lange's honey gold being quite similar. Similar shades of gold have been achieved by different alloys by other brands. But I still find in this something exciting and interesting. That's all. But at the end of the day, all of these things that we are looking at, they're basically new colorways, right? There's not, they're not reinventing the wheel here. Same thing can be said about Code 1159. Apparently, they're eliminating the white golds from that catalog. It's already the 5th anniversary, apparently, of Code 1159. They're still very desperate to push it, right? There's all this, smarty pants puns of like, AP seems to have finally broken the codes, and the collection is, hitting its stride, and all this BS. Don't believe it. It's still as unpopular as it was when it was first released. But of course, they're gonna try their best to get as much money and as much kind of interest as they can, because of the way that the company is structured these days, right? They just don't want to sell you the watches that you actually want, so they need to feed you some sort of trash, so you can feel like you are gaining some sort of access, so you can feel like you are going up the ladder, so you can feel like you will perhaps one day qualify for these pieces that you don't yet deserve, that you're not worthy of yet. That's why Code 1159 was invented, and that's why they will continue to push it for some time to come. The smaller 38 millimeter Code 1159s, of course, appeal both to the increasing push towards, or gestures and overtures towards, female collectors, but also the general trends of smaller watches industry-wide. White gold is eliminated from time-only and chronograph pieces, even if it may still come back, apparently, for more complicated watches, although that remains to be seen. We have already talked about the jumbo open works in white gold, 16204. And that's $125,000, just about. And there are also two 41 millimeter tourbillon, one of which has this smoked burgundy dial. It is in stainless steel. That dial color reminds us of the jumbo with the bulk metallic glass bezel that was rendered in titanium, the 16202 XT. This is the 26730 ST, with, again, that smoked burgundy dial, rendered in stainless steel. Admittedly, this seems slightly different, a more textured dial than the 16202 XT, which I feel like had more of a smooth surface. And there's also a pink gold version, which has a stunning sandblasted gray dial. This is the one that I really liked, actually. It does remind me of that Nick Faldo 25th anniversary Royal Oak that we were looking at earlier, the 15097 OR, in terms of the combination of a two-tone gray dial with a pink gold case. This is the 26730 OR, pink gold with a sandblasted gray center and kind of an off-white track for the minutes. These are both flying tourbillon, self-winding with 41 millimeter cases. The stainless steel is right around 145, and the pink gold version is 180. Apparently, they have just released, they have just shown a prototype of a new ceramic case they have devised, like a camouflage version. I feel like this kind of looks like what you can call maybe urban camo, because there's a snow camouflage as far as I know, but those patterns are extremely subtle since they are supposed to blend in with a snow white background that has some flora. Whereas, of course, since this is supposed to show off the pattern a little bit, it's much more vibrant, which would be counterintuitive in actual utilitarian camouflage. Of course, this is an offshore chronograph in the new ceramic camouflage. It's a prototype. They showed them in Milan, apparently. So these are Hodinkij's photographs again. The chronograph tourbillon. And apparently they can do different versions of this. They admit to some inconsistency and some measure of trial and error still, but they have also shared with the watch media that they're also working on using the same methods to mix different shades, different alloys of gold together as well. So some sort of gold camouflage pattern, which should also be interesting. I'll certainly like to see that. I'm not as excited about this as some of the journalists were, and I actually like that whole aesthetic. I should bring it out one day, but I actually have an electric guitar that has that sort of finish, like an urban camo finish on top of it, which I used to love. It's in storage now, and I'm sure in a horrible state. I should really bring it out and take care of it. So that could be a good excuse. But yeah, I'm not sure if I was quite impressed by by how it was executed. Finally, it is a prototype after all. Maybe they will do something extraordinary with the final versions. Maybe they will decide on a particular color scheme or combination that will really bring the best out of this particular design. But as it stands, again, with me, material innovation goes only so far, right? When it becomes a gimmick to premiumize, to sell the same kind of watch more or less with a slightly different aesthetic for much more expensive, that doesn't really cut it for me. So as much as I want to love the aesthetic, this doesn't strike me as anything yet. But to be fair, it's not the final product. It is a prototype, so maybe they will come up with something that's much more interesting when it's actually the time for release. Now we come finally to what was, at least for AP, the headliner of uh, this particular collection, the first installment of their 2024 novelties. We are hearing from them in the run up to Watches and Wonders. And this year, I don't think they are participating. I think in a recent interview, Ilaria Resta, the CEO, left kind of an open door, saying that they just might next year. That they might actually participate in Watches and Wonders next year, but this year they are not part of it anyways. So apparently, John Mayer, who was already quite well regarded within the brands, and very well taken care of as a customer by AP all this time, and I think he was really close friends, or seemingly close friends, with the outgoing CEO François-Henri Benamias. And apparently now he has not only a limited edition, but a new role within the company, which goes by the title Creative Conduit, and in all its pretense, that basically means that he is going to interface between the brands and collectors, in the sense he will remain a collector, but will also have this sort of creative input that he brings into the brand, that is informed with his conversations through his conversations with fellow collectors. I really don't know what that means. We'll see what it becomes in real time, in real interactions. I mean, I'm not sure if John Mayer is the kind of person who quote unquote stoops down to the level of us mere mortals, whether you are a collector of Audemars Piguet or not. So to me, it's as meaningless as any other thing that these self-proclaimed watch experts do. One day they are promoting these, shitter G-Shocks to you that, um, that fund their more expensive habits. And the next day, they're trying to sell you a limited edition Audemars Piguet Perpetual Calendar Royal Oak that costs a small fortune and could, even in Southern California, this could be a nice down payment for a, for a modest house. And anywhere else in the country, I think outside of the crazy metropolitan areas such as this one, it will actually get you a small mansion. So I'm always puzzled by that. Right? What kind of nonsense is that? I doesn't make sense to me. I think it's extremely cynical of these people, of John Mayer, of Ben Clymer, of um, Ed Sheeran, to do that kind of thing, even as they primarily collect serious watches, significant watches, as the podcast title has it: Eric Wynn, Charlie Dunn, and Tony Traina. Now, this piece has a number of interesting um, details about it that, of course, we have to pay uh, attention to. Um, it harkens back to a number of historical details about what makes the Royal Oak Perpetual calendars so special. Um, Things have changed quite a bit, of course. Um, these perpetual calendars were often rendered more or less within the same dimensions as uh, their, as the original jumbo, starting with 1984, with the reference 5554, which not too much later became 25554. And they were using as their movement base on which the perpetual calendar module was built, the no date version of that JLC 920 caliber. So the original movement was 2120 line 2800. And this piece, this limited edition of 200 watches, the 26574 BC, will in fact be the last of a kind, the last of Audemars Piguet Royal Oak perpetual calendars that use a movement derived from that legacy JLC 920. In this case, the most recent iteration for perpetual calendar for that was caliber 5134. This watch will be the last time that perpetual calendar movements will be used by AP. Um, it's a limited edition of 200 pieces, 41 millimeters in 18 karat white gold, 9.5 millimeters thick, and it has this blue crystal sky dial, which clearly harkens back to those Tuscan dials that we were talking about and that we have just seen actually in a variation in another perpetual calendar, not a Royal Oak, but this is Eric Pengcheng's 25657 PT. Classic version of hand hammering in the Tuscan or Florentine style. That is probably one of the most stunning alternatives to the classic cloudy night sky 50 color with the tapisserie pattern, bleu nuit nuage. However, apparently John Mayer's Crystal Sky dial is a different one. The description and some of the pictures make it a little more kaleidoscopic, a little more vibrant, perhaps, even though I like the artisanal look of those older Tuscan dials compared to the more modern frosted finish that we have today on the cases, on the bracelets, and on the dials. That's my personal opinion. So I completely disagree with how Hodinkee presents it, saying like, you know, AP perfected the process. They have streamlined it. They have made it cheaper. They have cut corners as they have increasingly done in the last few decades, or couple of decades. Let's be a little more fair. But in either case, this is a different method altogether that gave us the John Mayer Crystal Sky, which takes some inspiration from those classic Tuscan dials, but it is a new pattern apparently, and a new way of finishing, which takes the brass dial plates that then gets stamped by an electroformed die, and it allows, apparently, by building up the reverse of the aim dial design bit by bit, and the dial then is finally PVD coated in this deep blue shade, which gives it a very unique look. The Tuscan dials were usually finished or usually complemented by smooth subdials. Here, the subdials have that radial guilloche finish, those radial grooves that perhaps, including the subtle recess, gives the dial a little more dimensionality. The moon phase disc, the disc for the moon phase indicator, has that aventurine backdrop for the night sky, which I find always a very striking visual detail of the latest generation of perpetual calendars. By the way, please hit the like button. It really helps, and it makes a huge difference for a channel like this. As I'm trying to grow this community, you know, I depend absolutely on you, on your word of mouth, on your way of passing around the link, recommending the channel, sending out the videos, sharing it with other collectors, friends, enthusiasts, and, you know, leave, when you watch a video, even if you watch a little bit, you have an opinion, you have something to contribute, you have a question to ask, or you simply want to show your support, just leave a comment. That pushes me a little further in the algorithm as well. And trust me, for this kind of channel, every little bit makes a lot of difference. Baron Billie Jean says John Mayer is a way to bring some of the younger hipster market once they get older. Um, perhaps, perhaps. I'm not trying to teach them, marketing, to be honest. Um, they would have to pay me for that if they want my advice, to be honest. But yeah, collaborations are great. First the G-Shocks and the Hodinkee collabs. Now these, it's $180,000 to be frank. So not quarter million or 350, but $180,000 again. That's a lot of money for a single watch, right? You can build entire collections for half of that money, and it could be a very pleasing, very rich, and very satisfying personal collection that has a lot of great watches. And again, I'm here for advice. You guys know that I do provide those kinds of services. So feel free to email me. You can contact me through YouTube. The link is there in the About page. You can find my email address and contact me directly, or you can just drop a comment again to any of the videos, and we will start the conversation from there. There are other small details that I like. This, powder blue or baby blue indicator for the weekly calendar that shows the week on the rejo, on the perimeter of the dial. I really like. As unusual as it looks, I like this offset 31 in the subdial at 3 o'clock for the pointer date, because usually it seems a little too crowded at the end / beginning of the month there, with 31 and 1 standing right next to each other. This is a nice way to set them apart from each other. That slightly slanted offset way of writing 31. So I thought that was really shrewd, really interesting way of addressing that problem. I like those small details. The dial, if I ever get to see it, I will have to see it in person. I like the fact that they used white gold, although I think stainless steel would have been just fine, but it's a limited edition. And at that price point, the margins are not going to be all that different. So why not go with something slightly more luxurious? Honestly, I think titanium would have been very interesting, but perhaps that's not part of John Mayer's vision. And I understand that it is his limited edition after all. And yeah, here is one of those original Tuscan dials, actually in a platinum, I think platinum stainless steel Royal Oak case. We can see, no, actually platinum altogether, 25654 PT. To me, honestly, these are a lot more charming, but I can see the more contemporary appeal of something like this. What do you guys think? Write it in the chat, please. And this is the movements that is being parted with, to which AP bids farewell. Again, it's derived from 2120, line 2800, of which the most recent version is 5134, which powers this watch. And apparently Audemars Piguet is not going to use that movement anymore after this 200-piece limited edition. What do you think? Well, what do you think? Rick Foss says Eric Clapton collected high-end watches before Mayer was even born. That's true, but Eric Clapton is Eric Clapton after all. I mean, it's not. I think he's one of a kind. You know, I know a lot of these upstarts have very strong estimation of themselves as collectors, as experts, but quite frankly, you know, they can't. Yeah, they couldn't carry around Clapton's guitars. Honestly, I'm sorry, but as a musician as well, I think it would be blasphemy to compare John Mayer to someone like Eric Clapton to begin with. And as a watch collector, I think the suggestion is even more preposterous. Clapton already sold collections worth of watches that John Mayer could have only learned through him and through those sales. Yeah, and no Hodinky video where he pontificates with another rock star will change that fact. But anyway, apparently he's now enshrined as creative conduit for AP. So just as we were happy to send off one pretentious, self-indulgent executive in François-Henri Benamias in AP, another pretender came in. So I guess there won't be any shortage of them. I was quite excited about the woman leadership, since it is March 8th, International Women's Day. But it seems, at least day one, you know, 2 months into the new era, it's still in so many ways so much of the same bullshit. And admittedly, again, compared to the Travis Scott AP that was released, the Cactus Jack Perpetual Calendar, 26585 cm. I like this watch so much more aesthetically. It does appeal more to my sensibilities and what I would like to see in a Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar. Even in small details, I can find something to like about it, but the ethos behind it, the approach behind it, that desperation to look cool and hip and appeal to like, these sorts of niche but also rich crowds who crave luxury as an exclusive experience, none of that really impresses me. None of that really excites me. Um, Exclusivity for exclusivity's sake is icky. It's not charming at all. It's very disappointing. Um, Real rarity is something that AP has represented for such a long time. Um, I think Audemars Piguet didn't have um, a year before, what was it, 1968, if I remember correctly, um, when they produced more than 1,000 watches. Until like 1968, they were making less than 1,000 watches a year. Um, and I think I was just reading this the other day. Um, Damn, where? Maybe I can pull it up. Since it's the dying embers of the broadcast, of the live stream, I'm being a little more extemporaneous and a little more confessional, a little more um, unguarded, and ranty and rambling. But I do want to pull up this information because I was just reading a couple of days ago, but it's really something that speaks to how the exclusivity of AP at some point at least was about its rarity, and that wasn't some sort of manufactured scarcity, but something that was a natural product of their production methods, which uh, just focused on making a single watch, in the best way they know, uh, as much time as that takes. So wait, is it here? Hmm. I think this was in a piece in the Chronicles, AP Chronicles. Yes, AP watch numbering. I think I found the article, but so let's see. If you have any questions or any um, interventions in the meantime, feel free to write it in the chats. Okay, right. So let's listen to this. Um, when the number of movements was nearing the 1 million mark in 2017, the total production stood at around 800,000 units. So until 7-8 years ago, AP had produced 800,000 watches, right? But because of the numbering system involved, the movement numbers had already started nearing the 1 million mark, but not all numbers up to that point were used. So the real production numbers stood around 800 units, which means in 142 years, they produced basically as many watches as Rolex makes in 1 year these days, which is quite impressive, right? In and of its own, it's something that testifies to the kind of attention, care, and handwork that used to go into every single Audemars Piguet watch, and every single watch that was produced at that level, um, even after the quartz crisis. Um, it is past midnight, and I have a new little book slash catalog that came. I was just talking to you about the 125th anniversary of Audemars Piguet. This is one of the catalogs they published at the time. The number 2, 125 years of audacity. And it has some of my favorite models of the time. Like a perpetual calendar with the moon phase at 12 o'clock. That is the Grande Complication, of course, which combines the perpetual calendar with a split seconds chronograph and a minute repeater. You have an open worked perpetual calendar in yellow gold here. You have where's a yellow gold with the champagne dial. There's an unusual one here. Right here, the 14800. That is the version of the Royal Oak that was designed to be worn on the leather strap. If I'm not mistaken, that is one of Emmanuel Guet's designs, that adaptation of the case shape for a leather strap. Right there, 14800s. That's 14800 BA, by the way, with the so-called military dial, sword hands, sweep center seconds, with that distinctive Royal Oak branding at 6 o'clock as well. I don't know, it looks cool to me. You know, I've been tapestry purist for so long, but there's something quite charming about that dial, you know, with the Royal Oak branding. I don't know, it looks great. Um, oh, these are fantastic as well. With they're advertising all these bracelets and rings and earrings that have gem setting alongside some feminine versions of the Royal Oak. Right here, you know, there are rings, bracelets, octagonal. Again, speaking of some of my favorites, we do have that, you know, 25807 ST that we were just looking at, the offshore triple calendar. The beast in titanium, 25721 Ti, and of course the end of days there, the Arnie. It's very cool. All right, well, this is the end of tonight's broadcast. Thank you for your viewership. Thank you for your support and presence. Thank you for your interventions in the chats. That's already great support. If you spread the word, if you send out the link to other collectors, watch enthusiasts, your friends, that would be great, and it would genuinely help me expand the community. So if you could do that now, I would appreciate it. Once the live stream ends, please feel free to leave some comments. That is great help. As always, of course, if you want to do more, if you want to support the channel, the links are included in the video description. Of course, YouTube offers a number of opportunities. There's an increasing and exclusive archive of videos for members. And of course, you know, you can always use the super chat, super stickers, and super thanks. The last one you can use even when you're leaving comments, but the other options are also included in the links. If you have any questions, anything that you want to contact me, you can again always do that with the email that is listed in my About page on YouTube. You can just leave a comment, or you can follow me on Instagram and send me a DM. I respond to these things almost immediately, unless I'm really busy and in the middle of other work. And I still have 2 months and a week before my official retirement, so I still have a lot of work to do during the day. But if you follow me and send me a DM, that's probably the best and quickest way of reaching me, the easiest way of contacting me. So if you have any questions, any advice related to watches, if you want to avail yourself of my professional services as a curator, as someone who can help you with your watch collection at any budget, at any level. You can do that easily through the Instagram contact as well. And maybe, you want to commission a particular kind of content, which is something that people do. Any topic that you want me to address, maybe as a mere suggestion as well. That's also right, because a lot of times, if I am personally so invested in it, I would do it anyways. And the commission and the extra resources that it brings me helps me keep the lights on then, and that's obviously an extra encouragement as I devote my full time to this endeavor. But in either case, you should not hesitate and just send me a message, and we can at least start a good conversation, which is the main reason that this platform exists. Again, this is the only watch channel really that actually focuses on watches. No bullshit, no drama, no fluff, real knowledge, real passion, attended by real collectors. In fact, all these other people who are orbiting this space, my space, who obviously don't get this kind of information in other channels that they might frequent and that they might even help manage and run. So this remains your favorite live streamers, your favorite self-proclaimed watch experts, actual expert. I'll see you in the next one, and I'll be here to talk about watches. Have a great weekend. I don't know if I will be with you tomorrow, but I will have at least one or two more live streams before the end of the week. And hopefully the professor will come back soon with a very special episode as well. Let me see if I can convince him. All right. Take care. Goodbye. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Bye.